Hello, Canyon drivers and Touge racing enthusiasts. I've been getting a few advice questions on Instagram. Now, do you really want to listen to the guy who does time attacks in Priuses, minivans, and economy cars? Well, here we are, so I guess the answer is yes. I figured I'll answer the most common and fundamental questions right now here on this channel. What is the best Touge car for a starter? To elaborate, we're talking about a newer driver who's interested in Touge, who may have knowledge on racing theory, but minimal seat time in a fast-paced setting. What car do they choose? The short answer would be choose what makes you happy. But since this is not a philosophy class and I want to approach this from a technical standpoint, let's just define the best choice as a car that helps a driver reach their fullest potential. Well, actually, I won't be answering the questions. I let you guys on Instagram do it for me. Not because I'm lazy, it's just good to see what the consensus is among Canyon drivers. Let's take a look at the answers. Alright, first reply comes from Hipster Jesus 1337. Base model Subaru Impreza, very forgiving for learners and lots of room to improve upon. It's not a bad choice for the safety aspect, since it could be more forgiving when overcorrecting compared to lightweight platforms like the Miata or MR2. I would also be careful with it, since there is a misconception that all-wheel drive is an invincible platform that drives itself, when in reality it demands that same delicate weight transfer like any other drivetrain layout. You can partially blame Initial D for that. It's true that the newer WRXs and STIs have stability control that do a lot of the heavy lifting, but that's more of a modern car attribute than all-wheel drive, which is a whole other can of worms. Also interesting to note, out of 213 Touge time attack runs recorded, only 15 were all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, which makes up only 7% of the trials. You'd expect it to be more popular, but I guess the new generation of owners are busy at vape conventions. I guess I can't be a Subaru driver. 5th gen Toyota Celica. Okay, these are nice. I can't say that I've seen these on Canyons yet, but it seems like a good Civic alternative. There's like 10 different models of the 5th gen alone. If you really want to show people up, you can try to find the all-track, which is a super rare all-wheel drive variant. A little bit more power on their end too. Arixu says Hyundai. We'll talk about it. I can tell you right now, you should not be actively seeking out a Hyundai for a Canyon car. But if a spectacular, colorful deal pops up like a $500 Tiburon that runs and drives, it could be an investment. Just make sure you don't get the rear-wheel drive models such as the Genesis Sedan or Genesis Coupe. They encounter so many problems like second gear lockout, they somehow understeer worse than a stock VW Jetta, and the staggered setup is just going to rack up the maintenance cost. I don't mean to offend any Genesis Coupe owners. It's just the truth, and if you really do drive it on the Touge and compare it to other rear-wheel drive sports cars, you'll believe me. Maybe you can go with the Hyundai i30 CW Touring if you're outside North America. I had no idea those existed until now. Thank you. Baby Driver says Porsche 911 is the best choice for a starting driver. Okay, oh boy. My first reaction is that it's probably a horrible idea, since it's likely to be in an accident in the first few months, like any starting Touge car, and the repair costs would actually be more than the entire Touge team's worth in cars. I hate to use this Initial D reference, but real Touge teams are not as rich as the Red Suns. You know, it's usually $2,000 and under shit boxes, and it is that for a reason. But maybe it can work out for some people, since if you survive those first few months of training, you've become stronger than others on some Dragon Ball Z type shit. A lot of you guys have said Miata, NA Miata, and C Miata. Miata is always the answer. Well, it is one of the most popular Canyon drivers platforms for a reason. It's lightweight, cheap, low maintenance, easy to work on, easy to find on the market, and it's good on gas, which means you'll be getting the seat time necessary. And practice time should really be the aim for drivers of all skill levels, since it's the only way to build motor skills. And when I say motor skills, I mean muscle memory, until it becomes part of your subconscious. I know it sounds generic, but seat time has proven by top-tier drivers, racing coaches, and scientists to be the most important part of a good driver. The Miata is an easy platform to pick up, but can take years to truly master. I thought I was a consistent driver until buying my own NA Miata, and wow, it almost felt like I was learning the fundamentals all over again. Definitely get an NA Miata. or any Miata for that matter. It's a platform you have to drive to believe. Another popular choice is the E30 and E36 chassis for similar reasons. I haven't driven these yet, but I've seen a lot of people use this, especially for drifting. Drivers say that the longer wheelbase helps with stability. It looks like the go-to if you ever see those Eastern European videos. Those people are so skilled. Few of you guys said Toyota MR2, all 3 generations of them actually. This goes back to the Porsche suggestion where you have to ask, is it a good idea to start off with a trickier setup? I'd say it varies from driver to driver. There's a lot of guys who are headstrong about getting better quickly, and they end up approaching the limit and learning faster than most, which is great, but they're also at higher risk of crashing. I'd suggest a MR2 to a more patient, cool-headed type of driver, someone that will slowly work their way up to the limit of grip and dial back if needed, rather than someone who has a tendency to overdrive. And it's more important to focus on the fundamentals while still having a safety net. A setup that requires more precise corrections in throttle and steering input just adds another layer of difficulty that may not be necessary. But at the same time, they'll be better off when transferring that skill to a different platform rather than the other way around. Let's see what else we got. A stock cheap front-wheel drive car. Some drivers avoid front-wheel drive cars like hot dog water, but they should actually be the #1 choice for anyone with a low budget. So many options available for $500 shitboxes. You know, the car doesn't need to handle picture perfect for you to enjoy and learn from it. If you can find joy in handling a front-heavy Camry and mitigating understeer, you will absolutely go places in the Touge world. I don't know where, but you'll go places. Speaking of front-wheel drive, a lot of you guys have suggested the Honda Fit. Did this platform become a meme, or is it actually a viable choice for the mountain pass? I'd say it's a great choice for those who can only own one vehicle, with the need to carry cargo and have an ideal front-wheel drive experience. No interference from electronic aids in the first and second gen, but you'll still have ABS as an emergency backup. And of course, what's an FF discussion without mentioning Civics and Integras? So many to choose from, I don't even know where to begin. I've owned a $400 automatic Civic, the EH chassis, which is usually mistaken for the EG for some reason. The best purchases I made. Even when the transmission eventually did shred itself to pieces, I made more money back through tax deductibles after donating it to a sketchy company. Nissan Sentras, also completely overlooked, specifically the B13, B14, B15 platforms. Afterwards, they just started turning awful. All you need is an $800 Sentra with good tires, brakes, decent suspension, and you have yourself a competitive car up to a certain point. By the way, if you bring a Crown Vic to the mountain pass in North America, no matter how well set up it is, that makes you an asshole. A low power car will take forever to build up speed if you end up with a slow corner exit, whereas a high power car will mask that with fast acceleration and straight line speed. It's harder to notice the difference in speed between cornering approaches in a high powered car, thus making it harder to identify a mistake. Okay, on to the last few replies. This is how I would answer this myself, actually. 90s Civics for front-wheel drive and 90s Miatas for wheel-wheel drive. And of course, the all-wheel drive market is limited, so the go-to for that is the Impreza and WRX. I like how a lot of us had the same idea, categorize into drivetrain layout and choose from there. It's important to perform with both front and rear-wheel drive. It just depends on which one you want to tackle first. Something with 4 wheels and an engine. A little bit deep there, right? It answered the question on a very fundamental level. Since the primary objective is to get seat time, anything can be a good driver's car. Everyone's situation is different, so look at options outside of the box. Maybe you share a Civic Hybrid with your cousin, or maybe you have access to the church service Dodge Grand Caravan GT. Do you work as a chauffeur? Take out the work vehicle for training. Maybe a questionable junkyard is willing to rent out a Passat that's going to be crushed the next day. I'm not saying that happened, by the way. As long as it's reasonably safe, so no expired tires, brakes, they work, suspension is hanging in there, drive it. You don't need a perfectly set up car because life isn't perfect either. Even if you're so broke you can't afford a $1,000 car, I guarantee you will find options if you want it bad enough. That's all I have to say. I might do something like this in the future depending on how things go. Get out there, drive, and stay safe.